to improve your profile, but I imagine not all of you were on that. So we're going to do a brief review of how you upgrade your LinkedIn profile. Then we'll move on to part 2 of once you have a beautiful profile, how do you build your network, reach out to people and have them help you through those connections to get opportunities. Part 3, we're going to look at all the tools that LinkedIn has available to you, some through a basic membership, some through a premium membership, and how you can utilize those tools to find new opportunities, look for gigs that match your skill set, and even get your profile at the top of the pile when you see something that looks interesting. And finally, part 4, I'm going to show you some of the newer tools that you may or may not have seen that can even enhance your search overall. So we're going to try to get all that done by 11:15 Eastern time. All right, Meryl, next slide. That is amazing. I can go to the next slide without even clicking anything. So this is turned into a high-tech presentation. All right, so they mentioned a little bit about me, but just to give you a quick background of who's talking to you today and where I'm coming from. It was mentioned, I didn't, this wasn't said in my bio, but I grew up in Rockland County, New York. For those of you who know New City, that is my hometown. Not New York City, but New City in Rockland County. Went to the University of Pennsylvania. Was not sure what I wanted to do with my life, so I took advantage of their dual degree program, and I studied psychology in the liberal arts school and marketing in the Wharton School. Thought that what I wanted to do with my life was to go into marketing. Thought the best way to do that was to start at like a blue chip company, Fortune 500 company. So I joined American Express out of the University of Pennsylvania. My first few jobs had to do with membership rewards. So those of you who were using your American Express card and piling up the points, if you were happy with how membership rewards work, then you're welcome. If you were not happy, then I probably wasn't responsible for whatever was frustrating you about how membership rewards works. But what I found was that my boss would ask, even though I was doing marketing for a living, would ask, would somebody go back to campuses and help do undergraduate recruiting? And I would raise my hand. Or my boss would say, is anybody interested in coming up with a survey that we can send out to our employees and see what they're happy about or not so happy about at American Express? I'd raise my hand for that. Or they'd say, we're looking to do a philanthropy project. Does anybody want to donate some time? Eventually, my boss said to me, you are enjoying this other stuff much more than what I'm actually paying you to do. Now that if I had a boss who wasn't so supportive, they might have said, and therefore today is your last day at American Express. But she actually said, I think that where you belong is in the human resources function. And this boss actually helped me move over to that area where I learned like the nuts and bolts of compensation and benefits, employee development, training, leadership development programs, really all the elements that go into human resources. So I ultimately left American Express and started my own human resources company. Along the way, became a writer. So if you've looked at any of these Complete Idiot's Guide books, I'm the person behind Working Less and Earning More and Recession-Proof Careers. As I met my wife and had kids, I ended up writing a book with our pediatrician. You see in the picture there called Treatment Alternatives for Children. And also along the way became religious. So we ended up moving, and today's not the presentation for that, but we ended up moving to Fair Lawn, New Jersey, joined a Jewish community there. Went to a shul, and we still go to a shul called Shomrei Torah, where I had the honor of being the president under Rabbi Benjamin Yudin. So for those of you who know him, he's kind of like a celebrity in the Bergen County and YU arena, and had the opportunity to be his last president and apply my human resources skills to help him transition out of his role and run an election to have a new rabbi come in. So it really was like a whole HR opportunity to apply it in a volunteer arena. I became so inspired by other people who become religious that I now host a podcast through the OU called Saturday to Shabbos, where I interview people who were born secular and for whatever reason chose to become religious, and they tell their story of what their journeys were. And all of that magically comes together in what I do now, which is run a company called Jeff Cohen Media. It's basically a coaching and consulting firm that does everything from executive coaching, life coaching, and consulting with Fortune 500 companies. So that is my story in a visual look. So just to give you a little sense of where I'm coming from for what I'm about to share. Okay, Meryl, moving on. All right, so this first part of the presentation is going to be a little bit of a review, because those of you who joined, I guess it was a few weeks ago or a month ago on building your LinkedIn profile, you may have seen some of this. I'm also possibly coming at it from a different angle. So I imagine a lot of what I'll say will be similar to what you heard before, and some of it might be new information. So let's go to the next slide, and we're going to ask, basically, I'm not looking for you to raise your hand. This is just kind of a self-analysis. For those of you who are on LinkedIn or are thinking about getting onto LinkedIn and building a profile, which of these 4 statements do you think sounds like you? If you're at the very beginning of your journey, then your answer is not too good. I don't even have a LinkedIn account, and I've never made a profile before. And these choices go all the way through. I think that, Jeff, if we put up my profile right now for everybody to look at, you would say this is a best-in-class profile. I can't think of anything that could be done to make it any better. And this is the model that LinkedIn should be showing everybody who wants to have a perfect profile. And choice B and C are somewhere in between. So take 2 seconds just to ask yourself how you think your profile is. And now, Meryl, if you go to the next slide, we're going to delve into this a little bit. So this is going to be your first time to volunteer. And the way we're going to do this, for those of you who know Zoom, there's this option where you can click on this icon to raise your hand. So we're going to look for 1 or 2 people. On the next slide, I'm going to show you somebody's LinkedIn profile, really focused on their picture and their background. And I would like somebody to virtually raise their hand. Meryl will unmute you, and let's see what your perspective is on this person's profile. So Meryl, if you can go to the next slide. We are looking at Fernando Silva together. And if we could have our first brave volunteer, Meryl, you should offer them a prize for being the first one to raise their hand. And just tell me what your reaction is to this page. Go back to, just hit back to go back to Fernando, Meryl. Yes, so we have Fernando. Okay, so we need 1 volunteer who can tell us what they think about this picture and profile.
It looks like David Montefort raised his hand. Is that correct, David?
Yes. Good morning.
Go for it, David.
Thank you, David.
It really, there's one, he's not using the background to kind of communicate his brand or his positioning or what his expertise is. There's really nothing in his headline to tell us, you know, what he does or you know, the value that he can provide. I mean, it's pretty plain. So there's not much there for people to understand what he does or what value he can provide.
Okay.
This is Randy. Hi. He should have used a headshot instead of the shot is halfway down his shirt. It should be more about the face. And also he shouldn't be wearing a t-shirt. He's dressed extremely casual. Also, he could have done a lot better with his background, the powder blue background. It's okay, but it's not outstanding. And I just think the wording underneath his name could have been just more outstanding.
Okay, so that's all very helpful. You didn't think I was going to show you a perfect profile to start. You knew I would give you something that gave us a lot of things to think about. So I think you hit on pretty much all the things that would jump out to you that might be wrong with this. One thing I will say is, because I get the sense that he's looking for a job in the technology field, sometimes the casual dress can actually be okay. A tech person who's wearing like a fine suit and tie maybe doesn't depict exactly the image of the typical tech person. But we'll go into that a little bit further. So Meryl, let's go to the next slide. And thank you for jumping in to participate. So now that we have picked on Fernando a little bit, let's talk about 5 things that he could have done to his profile that would have made it look a lot better. So I'm going to share with you now 5 suggestions that he could have done. All right, so let's begin with the headshot and the banner. So just to be clear on the difference between these two, the headshot is the actual image of his face and the upper part of his body. The banner photo, as you saw in Fernando's case, was that blue strip that maybe looked like it kind of had, not stars, but had like circles and lines on it. That's the banner. And our volunteers rightly pointed out, there certainly was a lot more that could have been done with that banner. So just to give you some quick ideas on what makes a headshot good and what makes a banner good. Obviously a recent photo, we all want to still be 21 years old, and you stick with that photo as long as you can. But if you get to the interview and you look nothing like that photo, then that's like the quickest way to get yourself canceled out. So you want it to reasonably look like a pretty recent photo. One of our volunteers pointed out that a lot of Fernando's shirt was showing. And in general, you're looking for your face and just the top of your body to take up 60% to 2/3 of the frame that LinkedIn is giving you. You want to be smiling not just with your teeth, but also your eyes. If you take a lot of images and you look at them, you can see where eyes look inviting, look tired, look bored, and you want to keep taking that picture till you get something where the eyes seem to match what your teeth are trying to show. And then as far as what you're wearing, I mentioned this with Fernando. He still looks a little too casual, but he doesn't necessarily have to be in a suit, but you certainly want what you're wearing to match the kind of thing you'd be wearing at work that a recruiter would say, this looks like the kind of person that would belong in the office for the job that we're recruiting. So what Fernando was not doing with his banner was maximizing the benefits of being able to do something creative with it. So there's 3 main things you can do with the banner, and we're going to get into examples of this. You can point out what matters to you professionally. So he could have been showing things that relate to technology in that banner photo. He could be doing something in that banner that shows what he's good at. So if he's a programmer, he could be in that banner looking like he's programming. And you also can communicate a personal quality about yourself. So maybe he wants to work as an engineer or a programmer, but maybe actually he wants to lead other people. And so within that image, he could be showing himself in front of a group of people where it's clear they're hanging on every word, exactly like you're all doing today. Just kidding. It's hard on Zoom when everybody's on mute. You don't know if you say something funny, people laugh or not, but you have no idea. So I'll assume that you people are all going like this and thinking that's the best joke you ever heard. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so 6 very clear images of what's wrong with them. So let's get one volunteer who can come in and pick any of these. I've given you like a little one-liner about what might be wrong, but somebody jump all over these pictures and tell me why it's obvious to you that none of these are going to be effective.
Somebody.
Charles Gross, you had your hand up. Was that by accident or will you help us?
That's nope. Okay, well, let's take a look. Well,
Do you like any of these, Charles?
not really. I mean, the one on the upper left-hand corner, the lady with the long hair, is actually very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like more for a dating profile or a business profile.
Right.
And you basically have it all written here: too far, too small, bad lighting, facing away. I mean, I would pretty much concur with all of these. I'm not quite sure why someone would be showing himself. The one that's too far, it looks like he's on a beach or in the woods on a hike. It doesn't look very professional, unless, of course, that's related to the type of job that he's going for. The person with the guitar facing away, again, is he a musician? If so, that's a decent picture, except again for the facing away.
That's Warren Buffett.
Oh, that's Warren Buffett. Okay, well,
I'm joking with you. Warren Buffett does that at his annual bash. Unless you're Warren Buffett, I would say that's probably not.
I listen. I think pretty much anyone would hire Warren Buffett. So
Yeah, but that's not Warren Buffett. And he is facing away. Anyway.
All right, so let's keep moving. And thank you, both of you, for jumping in. So yes, the one that's cropped, you could say, all right, the image actually looks okay, but I like that you mentioned, is this really for a dating profile? First of all, there's an arm around her. So someone's like, is that the ex-boyfriend that she just cut out of the picture? But you don't want any other people in there. Sometimes people do this because they just happen to think that they got a really good photo of them. And it's unfortunate that there's something else in the picture. And they think if they crop it just enough, maybe it can look like it's a professional shot. The too small one is obvious. The facing away, that could have been a great picture if he was facing towards the microphone. Because if it is a job like as a guitar teacher or a performer in some way, then this is a great action shot. But again, you can't see the face. So that's what's killing it. The bottom left, maybe this is someone who's interviewing to be like a tour guide or, leads hikes and things like that, in which case it is good that there's a nature element to it, but you certainly could be a lot closer on that image. The bad lighting one speaks for itself. And the image squeezed one, I see this happen a lot with people where we take so many pictures on our phone, and sometimes you come across one that you think is you just love the way that you look in it. And so you say, I'm going to somehow make this work. And when you load it on LinkedIn or wherever you're putting it, it's not quite right. So you start playing around with it and you start shrinking it and squeezing it and lowering it and doing all these things to make it work with whatever the requirements are for LinkedIn. But by that time, you end up with a squeezed image like what happened to this unfortunate gentleman. But you can see he probably started with a pretty good image, but by playing around with it, it looks unnatural. All right, so let's continue on, Meryl. All right, so I'm hoping you can see now in this picture how this is accomplishing all the things that those other 6 images did not. So let's quickly review them. First of all, it's pretty obvious that either this was taken by a professional headshot person or whatever camera they had did a good enough job that it looks like a professional headshot. You can see that the smile and the eyes are matching. You're not thinking, well, those are tired eyes with a smiling teeth. They blend together nicely. She could have done something with the background, but she played it with what I would say is very safe, just having a non-distracting background. So your eyes are forced into the image of her face. You can put things behind you, but you don't want them to be so distracting that they overtake the image. We don't know in this picture what job she's trying to get, but you can imagine if she's trying to do anything in a professional environment, customer service, marketing, sales, she's certainly wearing an outfit that will match that kind of job. And she did a nice job with whatever photoshopping or anything that was done to take any of the shadows or anything off the face that could make her look tired or worn out, or anything that tells you that you're not a go-getter that a recruiter might pick up on in the image. All right, so Meryl, let's keep going. All right, so now we're going to switch from, we were talking about just the picture, and in this case I want to have a volunteer again. I'm not looking for you to comment on the headshot image that you see on the left. You may or may not like that. I'm not looking for you to comment on what she wrote under her name or anything where it says Zen Media, etc. I want you to focus in on the banner that she chose to make, where she's standing on the stage with the red outfit and the black pants. So I want to hear 1 or 2 people's reaction to what she has done with her banner choice and what you think it communicates.
Anybody want to jump in here? I don't want to call on someone.
It's Randy. I think it's great that she used a background shot of her doing some public speaking. It's great. She's wearing a bright top, so it makes her stand out, but it's not clear enough. She should get a clearer shot of what's behind her and her entire body. It's just not clear, but it's a great concept.
Great. So Randy, now compare it to Fernando. We saw a few slides back. What's the difference between the two?
Well, it speaks to what she does, part of what she does for a living. It's more specific. I noticed his background was techie. I've seen it before, but it didn't speak to what he does. It could have been more specific.
Right. Okay. Let's have one more volunteer. Anybody else have an opinion on this banner?
Okay. I agree that the shot of her speaking is a little vague, but on the other hand, it shows what she's doing. It shows, you can see that there's an audience. The stage looks very large. The audience looks very large. I don't know how large it actually is, and while yes, it could be a sharper picture, show her, show more of her. She's unrecognizable, but she gets her point across that she is someone who speaks. She is a speaker. And she is speaking, and there is a substantial audience.
Right. So I think what both of you said is great. And let me add a little bit more to it. I certainly agree that there are things that could be done with the image, whether you want her to be clear or a little bit more close up. But let's talk about, there are a few exceptional things that this banner photo is communicating. The first one, because in her description she says she's a keynote speaker, there's no doubt when you look at that image that she has positioned herself as a keynote speaker visually. You see her as the only person on stage. You see some pretty high-tech stuff going on behind her that indicates this is not happening in her living room. This is happening at some kind of major conference. I don't know what the words are that are on like that purple, white, and blue, but this image could even have a really well-known conference that she's speaking at that would communicate, wow, she is a featured speaker at this conference that I've heard of. And you're right, you can't see exactly how many people are in the audience, but you can clearly see that this is like a well-attended event. So I think in this photo, yes, it could be better, but she has managed to, if you go back to what we talked about, what the banner photo is meant to do, She has very clearly positioned herself as a sought after keynote speaker who gets in front of large audiences at big conferences. So if that's her goal, I think she's done an unbelievable job of getting that across. Whether the headshot that she has there matches with that, you could certainly argue that. To me, looking at them, they don't seem to go together perfectly. But I wasn't trying to show you this image for that purpose. I wanted to just focus in on the banner photo. Okay, Meryl, let's keep going.
Okay, somebody's got their vacuum cleaner going here. I'm trying to find it.
All right, it's not me.
Could everybody mute themselves, and if you want to talk, and just unmute when you're ready?
Okay, Sharon, we're good?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
But
sounds
not, someone else helped me there.
Someone who's on my podcast, by the way, recently said I should do a podcast on just the strange and unusual things that happen during these Zooms of all these different sounds that you hear, but that's a conversation for another day. All right, so let's move on. We talked about the photo, the banner. Let's talk about the headline. So this came up with Fernando. I remember we had a volunteer saying, wow, he seems to be underutilizing what he could be communicating with the headline. So we're talking about the words you put right under your photo. You can do this quick and easy. And maybe Fernando is saying, I'm a senior web developer, and he's trying to say, I'm just trying to be very specific. But what he could have done, and I don't even know what all these words mean, but I do know that someone who's trying to hire someone to be a programmer and engineer is going to look at this and very quickly see not just senior web developer, they're seeing, here's what he does, here's where he's doing it, here's some of the skill sets that he has, and by the way, here's some of the credentials he has of different programs that he's able to use. So the second version manages to communicate 5 or 6 different things compared to the simple version of just saying, here's my job. And a lot of people make this mistake either because they don't realize they can put more right under their picture and profile, or they don't know how to do it, but it's really straightforward to add much more than just your title. And so if you think back to what Fernando was doing compared to all these different elements we're now overlaying, Meryl, if you go to the next slide, and go back one. All right, so let's have a volunteer. Whenever I say raise your hand, here's an attempt at someone trying to put it all together. So tell me what you think now. Look at all of it. Look at the profile picture they chose to use. Look at how they made use of their banner, and look at the information that they put right under their name. So we're looking at those 3 elements, the photo plus the banner plus what they put in their headlines, and tell me what you think of this individual.
Anybody want to jump in? Ruben Wagner, if you want to jump in, your hand is raised.
Yes, ma'am. I think he got a lot of content in there that's fits together quite well. I mean, his picture is upbeat and smiling, as Jeff said, mouth and eyes. Up above, he's clear. He's an important VIP. He's an important person doing something important in his chosen, the message he's emphasizing, leader in turnaround work. He's enunciating something powerful in that frame. So I think it's all very strong. It's a little the text below Rod Cotton is a little busy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less, but it's still impactful content might work there. I don't know. I might be wrong.
Right. Okay, good.
But this is all pretty well targeted. I mean, put together, I think.
Okay, so thank you, Ruben. So
So
I would say for this image that you're looking at, I'm sure if we had more volunteers join in, you would see 1 or 2 things that you think would be better. But I would argue that this is someone who's put it all together in a really effective way. So why? First, looking at the photo, like Ruben was just saying, the image is professional, the smile, the eyes are all working together. If you go to the banner, there's no question that the image that he chose for himself and the fact that he put words into it that calls out this word leader it does look like he's saying something important, and it even looks like the people in the image are either taking notes on what he has to say or paying attention to him. So he's really, and he's at the center of the image. So all of this is communicating, I'm a leader, I'm someone that you want to pay attention to, I'm someone who has something important to say. And then the words, yes, maybe it's a little too busy under Rod Cotton, but he's also using a lot of good leader words. I'm an SVP, I work with boards of directors, I'm involved in transformation strategy. So all of this is, my number one point from this is it's all working together. The question is that what Rod is trying to communicate? We don't have a chance to ask him, but I would guess that he is. So if this is what you're trying to be, you can see when someone puts it all together. Compare this to Fernando, where we started with a very basic profile. And if you go on LinkedIn, you will see thousands and thousands that look just like Fernando. But you also see some that are a lot better that look like Rod's. So my whole takeaway from this is you want the photo, the banner, and the headline to all work together to communicate whatever that image is that you're trying to get across. In this case, that he's a leader in his field and someone that you should pay attention to when he's speaking. So I give him certainly an A. We can argue whether it's an A+, but I think it's a really well done job of the photo, banner, and headline. All right, Meryl, let's
Jeff, I have a question.
Yeah,
Jeff?
sure, go for it.
Maybe I was busy here trying to, but how did you put on there where it says, raise your hand and tell me what you think? Did you already explain that while I was fixing something? On the bottom where the grass was, how do you get that? Where it says, raise your hand and tell me what you think. How did he put that there?
Oh, that's not on there. I added that to the slide.
Ah, I see, okay.
Yes, that's the one thing Rod didn't do on his LinkedIn profile, is ask people to tell him what he thinks. So I added that, and that's why we got Ruben and others to volunteer.
I had, if you don't mind, Jeff, if you go back up to his slide again, I have a couple comments.
Sure. Go for it.
Can you back up? Thank you.
I can't, but Meryl can. Thank you.
Yeah, Meryl. Thank you. So I definitely thought this was excellent. I would only change one thing, and that would be under his name. It's too many words where it says SVP, Senior Advisor, CEO, and Head of Strategy. Instead of the "and," I would put another separation there, the bar that he put throughout the rest. Because when it's too many words, a recruiter might not be able to pick it up. I have spoken to several coaches, so I do know a thing or two about LinkedIn profiles. Another reason for mentioning many things under the name instead of one thing, just the title that Fernando did, is there's more likelihood for a recruiter to find you when they're looking for someone for a job. Okay, right. So if this person, Rod Cotton, if a recruiter has a certain applicant tracking system, they have a system, they're going to type in maybe head of strategy. So if Rod doesn't have that there, they might not find Rod. Okay, right. So Fernando is very unlikely to be picked up by a recruiter as often as Rod will be.
Right. So I would say, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would say this is a double-edged sword, because you could take that all the way to try to put 10,000 words under your title so that no matter what a recruiter searched for, they're likely to find a word that gets them to your profile. So on the one hand, that's good. On the other hand, when they do get there, you want your profile to make sense and for them to say, oh, I'm glad I got to this page because this actually does look like the kind of person that I would want to recruit and hire. Not get to it and be like, oh, clearly they just threw in as many buzzwords as possible, but I can't really tell what they do for a living. So you have to kind of find that balance in the middle. I do agree with you. We could have written his title a little clearer and used, some different breakup points to make it easier for people to read. Okay, Meryl, let's keep going. All right, and then the last part that goes under the profile and those words you were just seeing for Rod is you have an opportunity to tell a story. And I want to just go through this quickly. If you want to accomplish 4 things in that summary, and you want to make it as easy as possible for someone who's networking with you or a recruiter to pick up on these 4 things. Because when they come to your page, they're going to be asking these 4 questions. First, what is this person looking for? Like, why do I want to talk to them? What is it about them that I should pay attention to? Secondly, what do they do? How quickly can I figure out what is their job? And do they match something that I'm recruiting for, that I'm trying to find someone for? Now that I know who they are and what they do, what have they worked on in the past that tells me that they actually have the experience that I should continue paying attention to them? And finally, is there something you can add in there that's like such a wow thing they would say, wow, not only do they have the experience, but they've actually done something that tells me they may actually be like a high performer in this field and I should really pay attention to them. So I can't really go through an entire paragraph. I'd be happy, afterwards, you have my contact information through Jeff Cohen Media if you ever want to show me your profile and help you wordsmith these. But if you can accomplish these 4 goals, then you're more likely than not to get noticed by a recruiter. All right, so let's go to the 5th and final piece of maximizing your profile. And this is what we were just talking about. You have the opportunity to add in skills. So you don't want to put 100 things, but certainly if there are 5, 6, 7, 8 skills that are super relevant for you, I'm just showing you how you actually do it on LinkedIn. When you go on your page, you see the me icon, and you can very easily go through these steps. And they have a whole bunch of choices of drop-down skills. And it is true that recruiters are doing searches based on certain skills. And so if you have it and you can add it and back it up, if you get to the interview phase, it's great. If you're putting it and you're tricking people and you can't really back it up and it doesn't match your resume, then I would advise against it. All right, next slide, Meryl. All right, so let's transition now. So that was kind of looking at everything with your profile. So now let's assume that your profile is even 50% better than the one that Rod did. So whatever you thought of his, if you gave him a B+, an A, and A+, you've done all these things and you've made yourself even better than his. So your profile is as good as it can be. What are you going to now do with it? So this is your second self question, how you feel about your current LinkedIn network. Maybe if you don't have a profile yet, or you just made one, you only have 3 connections and you're not too proud of what you have yet, so you're choice A. Or maybe you have 5,000 plus connections and you view yourself as a LinkedIn networking expert, or maybe something between the two. So just give yourself that honest answer to what you think, what your starting point is on your network. All right, let's keep going, Meryl. And let me even go one question further. Let's say you're inspired by today and you think, I'm going to really grow my network. I'm going to take it from 50 people to 500 people. Why are you doing it? Why do you want to grow your network? Is it because at the next dinner party, you want to be able to say, I am Jeff Cohen and I have 5,000 plus connections. Look how popular I am. Is it because you want to add in all of these people that are known within the industry and you want to be grouped with them? Let's say you're an author and you want to be connected to a lot of well-known authors so that when people look at your connections, they say, wow, he seems to be hobnobbing with all these people that I know. He must be similar to them. Maybe you're trying to grow all your connections for choice C because you think it's your path to getting a new job. Or maybe you're happy in your job, but you think I should have these connections so that down the road, they might be valuable for me when I am ready to look. So, I'd imagine a lot of people today on this particular Zoom would fall into C, but there's certainly going to be times in your life where you're not actively looking, but you still want to maintain a good network within LinkedIn. Okay, next slide, Meryl. All right,
Jeff,
so
would you be able to take a quick question now or later?
we'll take one now, and then after that, we'll keep moving, and I think we're going to have a question period at the end also, but go for it.
Going back to Rod's page, which was impressive. As far as the graphics and how you can juxtapose images and fit images in, etc., is that intuitive, or is that require a whole set of skill sets to be able to get those photos the way you want them?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, LinkedIn tries to make it as easy as possible, but you do need to know how to take the images and drag them in and manipulate them and, change colors and words. And there's no shortage of people who will do that for you for a small fee as well. But that's also something you could reach out to me afterwards and I can help you.
Thank you.
With doing
Thank
it.
you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just start when we talk about building our network. There's 2 primary ways that you can actively build out your network. So you have your profile up. You can send an invitation to really anybody and saying, hey, would you like to be part of my network? And LinkedIn tries to make that as easy as possible. And if that person gets that invitation and says yes, they now become a first-degree connection. You know them directly. The second choice is through what's called in-mail messages, which is something where you'd have a premium membership, and we'll go into what that is in just a second. That gives you a chance to send a private message, not the typical invitation, but like an email through LinkedIn to someone to try to turn them into a connection of yours. And if we go to the next slide, I'm going to explain a little bit more about how this works. So you might be I would imagine some of you who are on this have a basic free LinkedIn membership, and some of you have a premium membership, and others of you are thinking, well, should I pay $29.99 a month to have a premium membership? It's actually a little bit cheaper if you pay for the year. I think it ends up coming out to 20 or 25 a month if you pay the whole thing. So let's just take a quick pit stop and say, why would somebody be willing to do this? And I should point out that there are many companies that even sponsor people to have premium memberships because they think it's good for their organization. So if and when you're in a good position at a company, you can certainly ask whether they would cover this $300-400 depending on how you pay. But what does it entitle you to? A larger profile picture, and the bigger picture and more customizable backgrounds certainly get noticed. I would bet for sure that our friend Rod has a premium membership because I don't believe he could pull off that profile picture and background on a basic membership. If you apply for a job, LinkedIn actually has your application go to the top of the pile. All the premium members' applications go in above the basic members. So that's a pretty big benefit to having a premium membership. You can also see who viewed your profile in the last 90 days, whereas the basic membership just shows you the last 5 people who looked. So here's an opportunity to say, wow, a recruiter just went to my page. I better reach out to them. There must have been something about me that made them want to look at me. You get credits on LinkedIn that you can't just send unlimited in-mail messages. So by having a premium membership, you can send more of them. And also you get more advanced job search features. So you can filter when you're looking for jobs by even more specific criteria to help you like unearth a great opportunity in a way you can't do in a basic membership. You can even see how your application is looking compared to other people who are applying. LinkedIn will match you up against other people's degrees, skills, experience, and gives you a sense of how likely is it that a recruiter is going to actually pick you out of the pile. And finally, you can open up your profile to basically anyone. So it's not for me to say whether $300 or $400 is something you can afford or not. If it is, you can see some pretty clear benefits to being able to upgrade your LinkedIn to a premium membership. Okay, so let's keep going. I don't get a commission on that. So don't think I'm trying to sell anything here. I'm just trying to show you objectively what the benefits are. Okay, so I want to make sure you understand the kind of connections that you can make. First degree connection, when you reach out to somebody directly through an invitation, they accept it. And then you have second and third degree connections. So if you're looking on LinkedIn, you'll see, oh, I don't actually know this person directly, but through someone who's already in my network, they know them, or through them and a third layer down, they know them. So there's all different layers of connections. There's also followers. So if you get into using your LinkedIn feed and you're writing articles or posting videos, people might find them interesting and start following you. And that's another way that you make connections. You can also join different groups based on whatever your expertise is. I join different human resources groups, and you find people through that, and you can make those connections. And you can also look finally for people who are completely out of your network and try to use InMail to make those connections yourself. So as we continue on, I'm going to show you even more in depth how some of these different types of connections work. Okay, next slide, Meryl. All right, so let's start with the golden rule of making a connection. LinkedIn makes it super easy. You can literally link your entire address book that's on your phone, and in under 5 seconds have LinkedIn send a connection or invitation request to everyone who's in your phone. But it's just going to basically say, hey, would you like to join my network? So that's probably the most impersonal way that you could reach out to someone. Will you get a lot of connections from that? Absolutely, because there are people who are just trying to bolster their own connections or know you because you're in their phone book. So this is the fastest way to suddenly go from 0 people to several hundred connections. But when you're talking about using this as a way to maybe land a job, that is the least effective way to try to make a connection. And you might not even realize you have a recruiter in your phone that you forgot you dealt with 5 years ago, and you inadvertently send it out to them in a very impersonal manner. Oh, by the way, let me just address this. I see in the chat room, why can't I find Jeff on LinkedIn? Because if you go to my website, Jeff Cohen Media, that I recently rebranded, I'm now working on rebranding my LinkedIn to match that. So you can't actually find me today. So I am mysterious in that way. But if we had done this presentation a week from now, you can go on there. And I imagine you would have been looking because you'd want to see, what does this guy's profile look like who's talking about how to make a good one? So you can't do it today, but a week or so from now, you will be able to do it. So thank you for that question. So when you're making a connection with someone, the more personalized you can make that invitation, the better. This is something you should understand just from how email works. Think about when you get something in your inbox that clearly went to thousands and thousands of people, how fast you delete it, versus if the subject says, oh, Jeff Cohen said I should reach out to you, and you know who Jeff Cohen is, you're going to open that. So the more personalized you can make this invitation, the better. So let's go to the next slide and look at how you might do that. All right, so let's have one volunteer kind of contrast the good and the bad of how an invitation might look to someone. Remember, LinkedIn by default will let you do this bad option of just saying, please join my LinkedIn network, and the person can approve it or not. So contrast that with this example of another type of invitation I wrote to Stacy from myself, and tell me what you think about it.
Somebody new want to join, want to answer that? We have a shy group. Oh, Robert Daly?
Thank you. So, couple things. Let me just move the window out of the way. It's a good invitation because, one, you're introducing yourself and you're reminding the recipient about how you connected, where we met, how she knows you, or what the connection is. And then you go a step further and you pay her a compliment. And then you're saying, hey, what was the purpose of your message? I'd like to add you to my connection so you're clear what you're doing. And lastly, you're putting a carrot on the stick and giving her an incentive to connect with you by offering a copy of the report.
Perfect. You did better than I could have even done. So I appreciate you jumping in. So whether you think these words are perfectly written, it accomplishes 3 or 4 main things. First, when Stacy gets this, I'm reminding her why she should pay attention to me, because we just met last week at this event. Like you said, I'm complimenting her and reminding her we had this good connection when we spoke. I'm making the ask, can you become a connection? But also I'm trying to now be helpful. And that's what that PS is. If you have an opportunity to be helpful and offer up something, because this probably came up in the conversation we had about talent strategy, that she's interested in trends and hiring practices. And I mentioned to her that I was involved in a report on it, or I came across this presentation on it, and I'm going to do something for her first. Compare all that to me could have just as easily, just to be fast because we're all busy, just sent a LinkedIn networking request to Stacy and hope for the best. And even if she wanted to connect with me, she might not put it together who I was. So there's a real big contrast here in the good and the bad of how you can make that invitation. Okay, next slide. Okay, so those are active ways to build your network. You can also do it passively. So if you're into creating content, and I'm showing you this screenshot of this woman, and when you're on your main page, there's options to create videos or write articles. So if you have an expertise, you can start writing articles or sharing videos that demonstrate that expertise. Those get circulated through LinkedIn. People come across them, they get interested in them, and they may start following you, or maybe even reach out to you. So now you have an opportunity. We were previously talking about actively building your network by going out to people, but you can also become a content creator and passively build your network by people finding you and wanting to connect to your story. Okay, next slide. And what this really comes down to is how you build your personal brand. That's really what LinkedIn is. It's a page that is how you communicate who you are and why people should pay attention to and ultimately hire you. So let's go into these ways that you enhance your personal brand so that recruiters would want to pay attention to you. Okay, next slide. All right, so we were talking about writing an article. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over having somebody raise your hand because I want to get to the rest of what we have. Meryl told me by 11:15. So what you can see is this person chose to write an article about the future of work. And I would argue what they've accomplished is they've positioned themselves as an expert in understanding where HR trends are headed. So if someone comes across this article, a recruiter, they might start following this individual, or they may reach out to them and say, wow, that was a pretty impressive article. We're actually looking to hire somebody in HR, and I can see how you might be perfect for this because you demonstrated your expertise through that article. The other way you can do it on the next slide is through videos. So if we were actually playing these videos, these are 2 candidate videos that this gentleman, this woman created to explain what they're good at. So you have an opportunity to bring the words that are on your page to life in a short video that's explaining who you are, what you're good at, what you're looking to do, why people should pay attention to you. The woman on the bottom clearly went for like a higher end type video because she's mixing in words. But look at all the opportunities you have here by whether you're using words or the backgrounds to communicate who you are. And again, these can get noticed passively by recruiters and people who are out there trying to find talent. They come across this, and this brings to life in a way that your picture and your words can't, because now they're seeing you in action and your personality actually comes through the video. So the articles and the videos are two ways to passively build a network. Next slide. So just to sum these up, everything we talked about in the previous slides was this active way that you're reaching out, the arrow going to the right, and trying to use the tools that LinkedIn has to bring people into your network. And at the same time, if you get into content creation through writing articles and creating videos, then you have an opportunity to have people follow you and become interested in you and build your network in both directions. So you're trying to get active and passive working together to build a whole network of people that are valuable to you and what you're trying to do. That's why it's a two-way street. All right. So now let's put all that together and say you have a good profile, you've built your network. So how do you actually use all this, and how can you actually find a job on LinkedIn? So we hope you can find beautiful clouds and sunshine ahead, as the previous slide said. So let's just start at the very beginning. The simplest, easiest way through LinkedIn, once you have your good profile, once you've built your network, is to just do a very simple search. And you can find this very easily by clicking on that jobs icon that you'll see on your main page. And you can very simply put in either a job title, like a marketing manager, or a skill set like coding in that box that says search by title or skill. You can put a city, state, or zip code, click on the search, and it's going to bring up many more jobs than you could even ever consider applying for. But that's the very most basic way that you could start using LinkedIn and immediately see jobs that are open right now. Okay, next slide. All right, I think for the sake of time, we'll skip why someone might do a simple search, and let's go to more advanced. And especially if you have a premium membership, when you're doing that search, you don't have to stop at just the title, the skill set, and the location. You'll see drop-down menus for all these different options that you can filter it and get super specific about what you're looking for by, you might get super excited about a job, but then if you see when it was posted and it was 3 months ago, you'll realize, wow, they probably already have candidates in the pipeline. Your odds are not that good. You can see exactly how much experience they're looking for and match it up with what you have to know whether it's really realistic. If you have 3 years experience and they're looking for people with 15, then it's probably not the right thing to go after. You can narrow it down by companies. You can narrow it down by full, part-time contractor, on-site versus remote, which has become a huge one in the COVID era as people look for remote jobs. So the more advanced you put all these filters on, the more specific the jobs will come up that you look for. Okay, next slide. Okay, and now after you've put in, let's say you just spend a half hour getting all these filters done perfectly, and this is exactly the kind of search that you want to do. A nice feature of LinkedIn is they will allow you to turn on a job alert so that anything in the future beyond what you saw today that matches this specific filters that you put on, you'll have those jobs come right to you, and you don't have to waste time redoing that alert. And you can set up multiple ones if you're looking for a couple of different kinds of jobs. So it lets LinkedIn now do the work for you after you did the work yourself at the beginning by setting up a job alert. Okay, next slide. But just because you apply, and this is not what it looks like in real life because these resumes are coming in virtually, but how does this all work together to get your resume from the bottom third of the pile to the top? So let's figure out what you can do to get yourself noticed. So I just want to read this phrase to you that's at the bottom of this slide. This is probably the most critical idea to how someone's resume gets to the top. 50% of recruiters say referrals are the leading source of quality hires. And if you receive a referral from someone who already works at the company, you're 4 times more likely to hear back from a recruiter. So let's say you have set up that job alert and you come across a job at American Express. And then you realize, but how is my resume ever going to get noticed in this situation? Now that you've just spent what we did in the previous part of this presentation on building out your network, you can actually click on this button that says ask for a referral, and LinkedIn will go through your 1,000 connections and see, does somebody work at American Express that maybe is hopefully a first level connection for you, maybe a second or third. But if you can connect to that person and that person is willing to vouch for you on your behalf, your odds go up significantly that you're going to get noticed by this recruiter and they're going to pay attention to you. And this all gets at people pay attention to someone that they know, that they can trust, and getting to someone who's within the company is the #1 way of dramatically improving your odds that a recruiter would pay attention to you. Okay, next idea number 2, career interests. And people get worried about this one. But you see what I've circled here within the career interest section, you can turn on this feature that tells recruiters that you're actively looking. If you really are and you're currently not working, then this is a great thing to turn on. Some people get worried about it if you're at a company and you're trying to search, but in more of a quiet way. LinkedIn claims that they have a way of protecting this, that it wouldn't be known, but I would say you have to weigh the pros and cons of making it known that you're actively looking. But if you toggle that on, it does send a little notification to recruiters that this is someone who is actively looking versus someone who maybe is happy in their job and I could be wasting my time by reaching out to them. So I would urge you to kind of weigh the pros and cons of whether you want to turn that on. Again, it will improve your odds, but you do run the risk of would somebody realize that you're actually looking. Okay, next slide. Idea number 3, and I know we're going through these fast. We'll take questions. You can reach out directly to employers through LinkedIn, and you can do it with short and sweet notes that get across everything we talked about in the profile, not just a long drawn out cover letter, but you can reach out directly to companies that are on LinkedIn. You can see opportunities that they have. You can connect with people at those companies. You can connect with recruiters at those companies with very short and sweet notes that get across, here's who I am, here's what I'm looking to do, I would love to connect, I see you have this opportunity. And the more you can personalize that by either having a second or third level connection that person might know that connects you, that's what all of the networking is about, is when you reach out to someone, if you have the opportunity to overlay that you and them know someone, it immediately raises your odds of that person paying attention to you. So you're always looking for that common ground, either through a person you have in common, or maybe you see that you're in the same kind of club or group on LinkedIn. Any of that will increase your odds of getting the person to reciprocate when you reach out to them. Okay, next one. So I mentioned to you, for me, and this is right from how I've done it, I'm in different human resources groups, and I get into very specific ones. Human resources is a huge field, but there's talent management, there's leadership development, compensation and benefits, there's executive compensation. You'd be amazed how specific these groups can get. But if you join one of these groups, you start to meet other people who are like-minded like you, and you find out that within those groups are people who work for companies that you want to be connected to, or recruiters who are recruiting for the companies that you want to be involved in. So you don't have to just rely on the network that you're building yourself. You can join groups, and then you open up access to all these other networks of people who have a common interest and are much more likely to say yes to your invitation because they see that you're interested in what they are. And they're also likely to help you because people like to help people who have common interests and are in the same groups. Okay, next one. I know we're going fast on these. We can, in the questions, go back to any of these, and you can certainly reach out to me after this, and I'm happy to break down any of these in much more detail. And finally, idea number 5, if you're doing a job search and you're coming across a company and you see, well, they have a couple jobs listed, but it's not exactly what I want. You know, I want to do something in customer service, but I'm only seeing a marketing job. You can start following these companies and get alerted when new opportunities open up specific to that company. So in addition to the job alerts that we were talking about doing based on all these criteria, you can set up job alerts specifically just for a company. In this case, it's Business Insider. And I really want to work there, and I'm going to follow them so I get alerted when that customer service job ultimately opens up.
Jeff, this is Sharon.
Yeah, sure.
Is that only for premium? Are these all the things you're showing? Are they premium, or are they also for a basic?
Most of them you do need premium, and that's why I said that $300 or $400, if you can do it, it's certainly a worthwhile investment.
So this one, for example, that you with the business.
This one I don't believe you have to be, but a couple of the other ones I was showing before, like the advanced searches and things like that, you do need premium. But this one I believe you can do.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going.
Excuse me, how about referrals? Is that the premium service? Because I've never seen that. Where you check off.
Yeah, referrals is premium also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the last idea, and then I'm going to show you a couple of new tools that they have, and then we'll open it up to questions. the more that you're active, the more that you'll like circulate around LinkedIn and get noticed in a passive way. So even just commenting on other people's articles and videos, writing interesting things about what they said, sharing what other people are saying. A lot of people think this is like a real time waste because you could spend hours and hours doing this. But at the same time, it is a good way to circulate your name, get out there and show that you're part of the conversation. So I would say even just to do 5 minutes a day to comment on a few people's posts, circulate a few articles you found interesting. It shows you that it shows you and positions you as like an active member of LinkedIn. Okay. So the last part, I just want to tell you about a couple of newer tools that you may or may not have seen that LinkedIn has to offer, and then we'll open it up to questions. Okay. So they started something on LinkedIn that's called Career Explorer, and you can check it out. I put the site where you can go to opportunity.linkedin.com, and that's where you'll find the section on job transitions. And it's actually pretty cool. What they will do for you is look at your profile and make suggestions about the skills that you have and other careers that it could translate to. So for example, myself, who was in marketing and was thinking maybe I want to get into human resources, they didn't have this feature at the time when I was doing that, but I could have put those skills in for my profile and it would have told me, oh, you know what, this actually does match with human resources because some of the skills are actually transferable. So you may not know another field that you could go into, and LinkedIn will actually say, hey, you probably never considered field XYZ, but based on what you identified as your skill sets, you actually would be a match for this other field, and maybe you don't want to do it at all, or maybe you think, wow, I never thought about that, and you could do it.
Is this one a premium? We're getting that question.
Yeah, so I wish I could sponsor all of you and just give you premium membership as part of this, because like a lot of products out there, they intentionally make things you can do with a basic membership, but then the best of what they have to offer, they're clearly going to want to make it as part of their paid membership. So I try to tell people this is probably the cost of one of your car lease payments or a super expensive grocery bill. So if you think of it that way, yes, it's still $300 or $400. They do give you a 1 month free trial, as I see someone just put in the chat room. But you're not going to get all this done in 1 month. So it's, it is going to take you a few months to suddenly navigate all this. But I think it's money, a good investment in your career if you want LinkedIn to be a main way that you explore finding a new job. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So they have a whole feature called Salary Insights where you can, so you know what you're making today or what you made in your last job if you're currently looking for a new role. And you can actually put in different job titles and markets, and it will give you profiles of what people are generally making for those roles. So looking at this example, let's say you're a marketing manager who's making $50,000 and you're in the Los Angeles area and you're trying to get a marketing job, and you say, wow, those kind of roles are actually more in the 75,000 range. So I've kind of been underpricing myself. Or you see that you're at 100,000 and you think, well, is this the market that I want to work in? Because it looks like these kind of roles are paying a lot less. So this is pretty valuable for when you think about what market you're looking for a job in and what general ranges they're going to be paying.
And what's that called? How do you get there? If someone wants to look for the LinkedIn Salary Insights, how do they go on?
So in the job, that job drop down, there's actually one of the choices is Salary Insights.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and tool 3, LinkedIn Learning, also is part of, I think they may give you a few classes, the basic membership, but again, if you have premium, if you can literally take classes in almost anything. I'm just showing you one page, but they have a whole section called LinkedIn Learning, where if you want to be able to add an expertise, like we were talking about putting in specific skills, you can say, oh, I want to enhance my accounting skills. I want to do more in business strategy. They have online classes. I've taken a couple of them. They're actually pretty impressive, done by experts in all these different fields. And then you can add it into your LinkedIn profile afterwards and say, I completed such and such class in accounting software. It's not the same, obviously, as getting an MBA or going to graduate school. But if that's not realistic for what people are doing at this point in their career, you certainly can add credentials by doing this, at night. All right, so let's go. And so the final thing, I want to give you one final tip, because I'm hoping all of this leads you to getting interviews and more interviews that you can even handle. So I just want to tell you that as someone who interviews a lot of people, beyond asking someone why they are here, what their strengths are, why they want to work for this company, I always at some point get to what I would call a competency-based question, where I say to them, tell me about a time that you demonstrated leadership, that you had to make a hard decision, that you had to overcome an obstacle. You can fill in that second half of the sentence however you want. But the idea is that I'm asking them to show a skill that is one of the qualifications for the job. And people do not spend enough time preparing how to answer this question. So the final tip I want to give you is a 4-part way to how you can answer any question where they're asking you about a qualification in the job. So let's say the question is, tell me about a time that you led a team effectively. So you need to be able to, in 2 sentences, explain the situation. So I might say, I was charged with creating an employee satisfaction survey as part of a team of 4 people, and I was designated as the leader of the team. So that's how you've explained the situation in 2 sentences. Part 2 is you have to be able, again, in 2 or 3 sentences, very clear and articulate what your contribution was to that team. I was responsible for reaching out to vendors that create surveys, interviewing them, finding out who would be the best, going over that with the team, and ultimately making the choice of which vendor we used for the survey that we put together. That's part 2. Part 3, the outcome. People forget to tell in the interview, well, what happened from your efforts? Or when they're talking about their contribution, they're talking about what the team did, but they're not being specific enough to what they did. So you need to get to the outcome. We ended up hiring XYZ survey firm. We sent our survey out to 500 members of our employees, and we learned that they were dissatisfied in our compensation and benefits plan, and we learned that we had to take a look at that. And finally, what you learned, it's important to say that 1 or 2 things went wrong in that project. Maybe you had a difficult moment with one of the people on the team, and you want to show very clearly, you know, there was one little piece that went wrong, but I learned from it, and the next time I was in that situation, I made up for that mistake. If you can nail this question, these 4 things in tight sentences, you will do extremely well on any question that has to do with, tell me about a time you demonstrated, whatever the skill might be. Okay, Meryl, moving on. So I know we went fast. I wish I had 3 hours with all of you, because I think a lot of these slides, you could spend a whole hour on all these tools that I showed you. You could easily spend an hour on learning how to use them. But I really wanted to give you a surface view of like everything that LinkedIn has to offer. I'd be happy to follow up with any of you who found one of the tools, Salary Insights, LinkedIn Learning, any of them in particular you found to be interesting. If you play around with it or struggling or how to maximize it, I'd be happy through Meryl to have you reach out to me, and I can explain it a little bit more in depth. But I hope at the very least, at a surface level, you got today what you can do to make your profile better, all the different ways you can use LinkedIn's networking tools to grow an effective network, all the tools that LinkedIn has available to help you speed up the process of searching for jobs and getting noticed, and hopefully landing whatever that job is. I know that's Meryl's overall goal with everything that they're doing here. So I think that's it for me. I think the next slide says if you have any questions, or you have your marching orders, you know what to do. And the next slide is just thank you, and if you have questions.
Okay, so does anybody want to ask a question here?
Hey, Jeff, this is Leonard. How do we get in contact with you since your website's not up?
The website is up. If you go to jeffcohenmedia.com, there's a contact page, so you could reach out to me.
Okay.
The LinkedIn profile is not up. That'll be
Oh,
up.
LinkedIn. Oh, okay.
I told Meryl she picked the absolute worst time to have me do this presentation, because I knew you would all say, well, what does this guy's profile look like? And you say he doesn't even have one. But come back in a couple of weeks and you'll see how I did it.
Got it.
Anyone else have a question? Now's your time.
Jeff, what's the advantage of following someone rather than giving that person an invite?
So sometimes you're following someone because you're just curious about their content and you think that you're learning from them. So I wouldn't say that I would look at it as an advantage or not. I think if you want to use that connection to help you find a job, then following them is not the way to go. Then you do want to find a way to reach out to them. I think the following is, I was suggesting with following that you want to get people following you by creating articles and content that gets people interested in what you have to offer. I follow people that I find their content helpful to me. in terms of like just growing my own skill set if I think they're knowledgeable in HR.
Does LinkedIn tell you when someone is following you?
Yeah, for sure. You get a whole list of your followers. And then you might see someone on there, so I'm going to reach out to that person. They clearly are interested in what I have to offer. I'm going to make a connection with them.
All right, we're going to take a 2-second break here. Please, nobody go. I know you probably have tons of questions. I'm sorry. I feel like I was like in cyberland because I was afraid to touch anything and lose the presentation. But I just put.
I'm sorry, Meryl, this is Elliot. I'm only on the phone. I'll try to reach out to you, Jeff. There are other networking groups that would really benefit from you. And just as Meryl and Sharon have helped me, there's lots of stuff I'd share from you, and I learned an enormous amount. I mean, I apologize, I'm on a hike, but I listened to you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you
But
very much.
Elliot, hold your thought for a second, because this is important. Before I disappear, and I see people are clicking off, we really need to do this evaluation. I just put the link to the evaluation in the chat box. Please copy it, and please go and complete it as much as possible. We're going to give you like 3 minutes now. If you don't finish it, then come back and finish it afterwards in another time. But we use this information both for our funders to go forward for new programs, and really the speakers love it because I give them the evaluation that you write in there. I give them feedback, good, bad, and ugly. So we're going to take 3 minutes. Sharon, can you go ahead and do that? Time them, and then please don't disappear, because I know you probably have tons of questions for Jeff, and we're willing to keep going for a little bit longer. So go ahead, Sharon, time it away.
Okay, I'm timing it, and we really need this to keep these programs going, because if we don't show that you guys were here, then they're going to cancel us. So please just give us an evaluation. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to just, Sharon and Meryl, just reiterate again, I think LinkedIn has like so much on there that really we could have done a whole presentation on any one of these slides, and we could have played around on LinkedIn with learning or salary insights or any of them. So what I was hoping mostly to accomplish is to let you see all the tools, and whatever you want to deep dive on, play around with, and then either through Meryl or Sharon or me, reach out. we can deep dive on something that you think would be helpful.
Almost.
Two minutes, guys. You have just 1 minute left. You can finish it later. Okay, that's 3 minutes. Thank you, guys.
And I also just put a link into the chat box for the presentation. I was able to save it and figure it out all while you guys were doing the evaluations. So it is there. You just click on it. You should be able to get to the presentation. All right. So
Meryl, we have a question from Wei Yim.
go ahead.
Could you kindly show us on LinkedIn how to join groups and events for someone that has basic membership?
So that's something I'd rather do like offline, because when I try to play around on LinkedIn with everybody, it gets a little bit crazy. And I tried doing that in my last presentation. And so rather than do that in real time, if any of you have like a specific question like that, either through Merrill or you can go on my website, Jeff Cohen Media, reach out to me through the contact page, and I'm happy to give you like specific instructions on that kind of stuff.
Okay,
That's very nice of you, Jeff. Thank you.
very nice of you.
So
Other
I imagine
questions?
each person maybe has like one very specific thing like that. So I don't know if we could get through a lot of those if I start going on the website.
Go ahead.
Question, Merrill, may I ask a question? Ruben
Sure,
Vabner.
Ruben, go ahead.
Jeff, experimental basis, I posted a article about a month ago, 6 weeks ago on LinkedIn. The topic was today's inflation. Whether is it really temporary, or are we entering a world of pain? It was a 5-6 page article, technical. So I posted it. From what I understand, it went to all my contacts. It went to so I belong to transportation logistics groups, rail. If I read it correctly, it should have gone to those people. They should have been able to access it. The feedback, when I checked the numbers of who opened it, first of all, there's 2 different numbers. 2 different statistics. If you look them up, one is how many people did it come onto their feed?
Right.
And the second one is how many people actually opened it?
Right. Open rate.
Okay. Those numbers were not huge. They were a couple hundred. If that article actually went to the entire freight rail group I belong to, and the entire passenger rail freight group I belong to, whether or not I'm connected with those people, plus my 800, 900 connections, I would have thought it would have hit feeds of a lot more than 200, 300, 400 people. So it's very opaque, and I'm not sure what LinkedIn is telling me. It could have not just hit 300, 400 people. Doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, they're always changing the formulas of who it goes to and how it goes out, because more and more people are creating content. So not everything can go to 1 million people, and there are people who are better known, who have more connections, who do go out to bigger audiences. So like you, neither of us are celebrities, so we're not getting the kind of distribution and open rates that other people would get. But
fair enough.
Even if it 300, 400 or whatever it went to, those are all people you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't write the article. So I wouldn't say it's like a waste of your time.
Okay.
But remember, again, that's a passive way to build your network. So so whatever number of hours you spent writing that article and getting it out, and now you're looking for the world to notice it, is a big difference from an active search where you're reaching out to people.
Yeah, well, I'm doing both, but I had people telling me, for example, what is it? Your SSI score,
right,
is factors in how much you post, how much you comment on posts.
Right.
So I took the labor intensive approach. Instead of just commenting on somebody's, picture of his dog, I wrote an article on the inflation phenomenon we're having today. So, I took the long way. So yeah, that's not a substitute for an active search. I understand. Right. Okay. But I was being told SSI is important. And anyway, I gave it a shot. I'm just was surprised it was so opaque.
Right. I hear you.
My comment.
There's one comment I wanted to make, Jeff, but before I was afraid to unmute myself because I was afraid if I touched anything, it would all blow up. But we were talking before, a lot of people asked me the same question about should they pay for LinkedIn Premium, should they not pay for LinkedIn Premium? And what I would say, because you kept saying this $400 number, first of all, you do get a month free. And then if you only sign up for a month or 2, you might be able to get a lot of this stuff done, and then you can go back to basic. So if it seems exorbitant for the whole thing, just be careful, because they're just like all these other websites, they're going to keep on charging you until you cancel it. So make sure you cancel it, but you may find after a couple months that it isn't so worthwhile, or you don't have the money. So think of it as a $50 investment for 2 months, or 1 month and a free month, and then see if it's worthwhile again after that. You could always sign up again a couple months down the way. You don't have to keep it for the whole year.
Right, and they're also changing what counts as premium and what doesn't. So I saw like in the chat room people asking, is that premium or not? Like it might be today and then tomorrow it might not be. So that's a hard question for me to answer. But
Right.
you do get more obviously when you're paying. Whether it's worth it is a different question.
And also the most important part is, again, don't just, yeah, you're posting and you're linking and you're liking and you're doing all those things. Talk to people. The whole point of LinkedIn is to connect with people, and that means really connect with them, see them, write them letters, get phone calls, have Zoom meetings. The quality is much better than the quantity.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because when I do this presentation live, I always point out that the 5 most important people of whatever number of connections that I have done more for my career than the rest of the people combined. So when you find those jewels within your connections, just putting random comments and acting busy is not the way to build those relationships. So I really try to be like helpful with those people. And when I need help, then they're like more likely to want to do something for me.
Are there more questions out there? If you have a question, unmute yourself before everyone disappears. If there are no more questions, hello, anybody? Are you all out there? All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, then first of all, I just want to really thank Jeff. I want a round of applause, a virtual round of applause from everybody. This was an amazing presentation. It was a lot of information, and I think they're going to be processing it for a while. Like I said, I did put into the chat room the connection to the PowerPoint. This is going to be recorded. I'm going to ask my IT person if he can cut out that whole tech issue that we had in the middle. So maybe we can shorten that part or just zoom through it. But, feel free to watch it again. Feel free to get the PowerPoint. If you can't get it through the chat room, reach out to me directly. But all of our speakers volunteer, so we really want to thank Jeff for volunteering his time. And I have to tell them, Jeff, because life is about networking. And the way I found Jeff was that both of us volunteered at an organization that helps people like you, and they were doing a job fair. And Jeff and I both volunteered to do quick resume reviews, and our tables were near each other out in the lobby. And I went over to Jeff and just introduced myself. Of course, we have mutual connections through a sibling of mine. But through the course of the conversation and hearing what Jeff said, I said, hey, I'm looking for speakers, which is what I do all the time. He said, sure. So you just never know where you're going to find a connection, who's going to be able to help you, how you can help each other. I'm hoping that somewhere in the future, I'll be able to help Jeff. And that's my goal. So, it's always about, as Marty Latman, who I think didn't come on today, it's always about connecting.
Yes, and
that's
Meryl, thank you for pointing out you can still network in real life.
Yes, and for anything, an apartment, a spouse, a plumber, it's all about networking. But anyway, thank you, Jeff, so much. For the rest of you, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We actually have a bunch of staffing agency people who are going to come and talk. I don't have an official title yet, or I'd give it to you. I have a meeting with them this afternoon, but they're going to talk about how to work with staffing agencies as sort of behind the scenes. I'm hoping you all have jobs and none of you will need to come on to the program. If you land at any point, please let Sharon and I know, just whether you're a client or not. Well, clients obviously have to let us know, but non-clients let us know as well, because it's why we do this, and it makes us happy to hear people are landing jobs, and then we can pay it forward. And for the rest of you, just stay healthy, stay safe, stay warm. I think we're finally going to get moving into that winter weather. And actually, we won't see you till after Thanksgiving, because 2 weeks from now is Thanksgiving. And so we are not having a program that day. So our next program isn't until December 9th. No, December 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, the week after, whatever it is. So, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy being with your families, but be as safe as possible, given that, unfortunately, COVID is not gone yet, and just have a good time and stay healthy. So, and if you need anything, Jeff was very generous. Reach out to him with quick questions, simple things, and then hopefully we'll see you in 4 weeks from now. Take care and bye-bye.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Bye.
Bye.